Hey, what's up, you guys? It's your boy 3 Stacks, and this thing representing my squad as always. And today I will be discussing the what I believe are the current top 10 decks of the format, and this is excluding decks that are coming out. What's actually out right now? I know Cybernetic Horizon is right around the corner, but it's still not legal in this format. It's not TCG legal just yet. We can't really play the cards, in a tier 2 level event. So I'm speaking on the decks that are already out. Now, my choices are very different from most. I'm not here to step on anybody's toes or hurt anybody's feelings. We all have those decks that we feel like the best. If I was being biased, I would say Herald of Perfection is the best deck, but I can't be biased. I have to speak based off of the facts, the statistics, representation, the percentage and the ratios on how many times these decks have topped, how many people are playing them, how many events do you see them pop up at. All of that factored in, that's what determines what the top 10 best decks are. And some of the choices are also based on years of performance. Like, some of these decks have just been, like, they just can't die. Like, they have consistently been in the forefront of every single format for years. So we're going to go ahead and get started with number 10. So I have it written. Let me go over here, actually. So in number 10, I have Invoked. Now, my reason for placing Invoked in number 10, I'm an Invoked player, so I understand the deck, and some of you play Invoked as well, so you understand as well. And by the way, the reason why I'm showing you my face in the video is because I normally show my cards, but I really want to see you guys face to face to explain you guys, because I'm very sincere about this top 10. Like, I'm really serious about this. I feel like this is information you guys should know. But Invoke took number 10 for me because even though it has not seen that much play in this format that we're in right now. By the way, y'all go ahead and say what's up to my turtle Esteban. It hasn't really seen that much play in this format, but you can't overlook the facts. I mean, this deck has already proven itself. Even if it's going uncontested, like whether it's going uncontested or not, even if it's like getting disrupted, this is just one of those decks that's not very easy to beat. It's very simple to pilot. It's not a very sophisticated playstyle. For those of you who don't want to think too heavy, who don't want to play those extremely combo-based decks, this is definitely a deck for you. It has the sheer potency of the one-card combo being an Alistair, a Terraforming, a Meltdown. I mean, this deck, it has so much options in the form of its fusion monsters that it practically has an advantage in given situations. Like for the Burning Abyss matchup, you could just make Raijin and Book of Moon your BAs and your guys just start dying. For aggressive decks, it has like Purgatrio to OTK you. It has Cocytus for decks that can only target. Like Cocytus is great in the Sky Striker matchup. All their spot removal targets and or destroys. You can't get over him. Even against Spirals. I mean, it has Mechaba, a negation on legs that happens to negate and banish, which is a lot more detrimental than destroying. I mean, it has so much options in its fusions. And then also the arsenal itself. It's a very compact engine. It has a lot of space and room for creativity. You can really do Invoked anything. Honestly, you can. Because their fusions require just an attribute monster and not a specific kind of monster, you could play Invoked in anything. I mean, if you're playing a deck that doesn't really need its normal summon, but it still, can normal summon, then why not play Invoked in it, right? I mean, Invoked Mech Knights is one. Back when Masterpiece was legal, I personally played True Draco Invoked for about 3.5 months. Enjoyed that deck a lot. So I know from experience that this deck is amazing. It's an incredible going second strategy. Like, me personally, my going second Invoke build, I played 3 Evenlies, 3 Impermanents, 3 Ash, 3 Ogre, 3 Drolls, 3 Effect Veilers, and I think I also made Dark Hole Raigeki. Yeah, and I think that was it. But, like, I was just straight up going second. Instead of playing the Mech Knights, I played, like, Bombshell, Blowout going second cards. And then, like, it doesn't really matter if you're down to a very minimal amount of cards in your hand. Because as long as you have that Alistair, you have plays to make. So it's just one of those decks, man. You have to be on the lookout for it. Because if you don't respect it and you don't prepare for it, it's one of those decks that not only will steal wins from you, but it will upset you over the fact that you lost to a strategy that doesn't seem that powerful. But, it has some, I guess you could say, it definitely has a lot of potential, and it has a lot of things going for itself moving forward into the future format. Just because of its splashability as an engine, and also its potency as a deck. So number 10, Invoked. In number 9, I have Paleozoics. Paleozoics are definitely probably my favorite trap-based archetype period. If I was to choose between Paleos and Altergeist, I would choose Paleos every single time without a shadow of a doubt. I wouldn't even think twice about it. Paleos is just one of those decks that not only has it never ever been hit on the ban list, but it's proven itself to be an absolutely dominating force in this format. I mean, so dominating to the point where it was the best deck of the format for multiple formats. Multiple formats. I mean, this deck has never lost its power. There are cards that came out later on in the future that kind of crippled its playstyle, like Evenly Matched and Red Reboot. But even outside of just looking at those two cards specifically, this deck strategy is amazing. I mean, it prefers to go first, but it's not really one of those decks that loses if it goes second. It has such an insane grind game synergy, the ability to recuperate, to gain field presence and advantage just simply by activating traps. The ability to spam Totally Awesome. I mean, that card is just insane. I mean, it's one of the most unfair negations that I've ever seen in my life. When I first read that card, I thought it was one of those Yu-Gi-Oh cards that people, you know how people make Yu-Gi-Oh cards and they're like fake, but they kind of make this dream card of like, oh, I wish Konami would make it. When I first read that card, I thought it was fake. I did not believe that they made a card that powerful, and I think at the time they were calling it a Tree Frog, but then it ended up coming out and it's like, oh my god, Paleo makes this card so easily, and it's like infinite. It's like how BA's used Dante. Toad recycles itself. You have endless Toads, infinite Toads. You're always chaining traps. You're always, and it's just like the deck doesn't seem explosive, but you turn one setup, turn two kill. Like, you literally just spam traps from your grave after you've used your Book of Moon, your MST, your Karma Cut, your Foolish if you play it, your Lian Chaya. You can play the attack enhancers, whatever Paleos you want, chain them, and then hit your opponent with the Mirror Force or a Wabaku or a Threatening Roar. Those Paleos are there, and then they're unaffected by monster effects. That's what's crazy. Then you start going into Opabinia, Animalcaris, and Totally. I mean, the Paleozoic XYZs are insane. Not only are they unaffected by monster effects, but they always garner advantage. Opabinia being able to search, and Animalcaris being able to net you that free draw every time you activate a trap. It's insane. I mean, not every time, but once per turn when a trap leaves the spell trap zone, you get to draw. That's just, they pay for themselves. They're unaffected by monsters, and like Animalcaris is just redundant. I mean, this guy is not only unaffected by monsters, but he's a Trident during either player's turn for any card. Like, these, they are such an oppressive archetype. I can't stress enough how powerful Paleozoics really are. And then when you incorporate the Frog engine, Swap Frog, Dual Frog, Ronin Totem, this deck, like, those two strategies are so perfect. It is just amazing. Paleozoics definitely take number 9 without a doubt. I mean, this archetype, if you play Paleos, you know what I'm talking about. It's just one of those decks, they catch you off guard and they go bananas. This deck is really powerful. And then in number 8, we have Infernoids. Now, it doesn't have to be Lair of Darkness Infernoids, but I will say that's probably one of the more popular strategies for Infernoids currently right now. But pure Infernoids are no joke. If you guys have seen my Infernoid builds, you know how powerful Infernoids are. I mean, people underestimate the power of Future Fusion. It did get that errata, but the bonus to it is the standby phase after it's been activated. So the next standby after you activate it, you get to send those materials. You still don't get to fusion summon, but you are literally loading your grave with Noids. Like, it literally says, like, kill me now or I'm going to kill you the next turn. Like, it puts your opponent in that position where they're like, they can't just progress their plays the way they want to. They have to keep in mind, if I can't kill him right now, I'm probably going to lose. And Infernoids are such an insanely powerful going second strategy. I mean, their monsters are all different forms of spot removal. You can bounce cards. You can shuffle set cards back into the deck without them being able to respond. You can destroy monsters. You can destroy spells and traps. You can banish cards, any cards, without targeting or destroying. You can attack twice. You have Heavy Storm and Raigeki, or Harpy's Feathers Duster. You have Harpy's Feathers Duster and Raigeki in the form of monsters in your main deck. You have Negation, negating monster effects or spells or traps and banishing them as a spell speed 2. You have the ability to DD Crow and control the manipulation of your opponent's graveyard. You have the ability to recur themselves practically infinitely from the graveyard. You have the attack power, the overwhelming and dominating force of this deck. Infernoids, the decks that I'm speaking of right now, a lot of people don't care about them, but I know I know how powerful these decks are. I played all of them, and I understand exactly how powerful they are. You think back in the past format where Infernoids were like the best deck. Infernoid Zodiac was like the best deck, and it wasn't necessarily Zodiacs that made the deck so good. Trust me, Zodiacs were splashing everything. It was Infernoid itself. People looked at it like, wow, this strategy is amazing. It wasn't just because the grass looks greener. You have Void Imagination. You have Void Vanishment. You have Decatron. Now you have Void Feast. Literally like 2 negates and a DD Crow. And then to top it all off, not only do you get the negates, but you get a Nunchu and Daviate in your grave so that you can blow the field up on next turn and attack for game if you already are able to do so. Like, Infernoids are just such a scary strategy. They really are. They're scary, dude. Whenever I play against this deck, I'm so nervous and I'm on my toes. Like, you can't make a mistake with this deck. It is your demise, I'm telling you. Infernoids definitely take number 8. And it's not just because of the 3 Future Fusion, the 3 Void Vanishment, the 3 Void Imagination, the 3 Decatrons, the 3 Void Feast. It's because they have Raigeki, Heavy Storm, they have Mecha Bust that are a lot easier to use, and they have spot removal for anything. If a card can't be targeted, they can shuffle it. If it can't be destroyed, they can banish it. If it it doesn't matter what the card is, they can get rid of it. It doesn't matter. Like, they have cards that destroy, they have cards that shuffle, they have cards that banish, they have cards that don't target and don't destroy. They have removal for anything. There's nothing on the board that they cannot clear off. It's insane. And then to top it off, they have negations. When you think about the arsenal of Infernoids, it is so diverse. They have a myriad and a plethora of different effects in their arsenal. And then they not only the spot removal, but then you add in their board wipes and then their negations. They're like it's like a deck made in heaven almost. Its downside is it has a tendency to brick when you draw some of the higher level guys, and then also if you don't have enough Infernoids in your grave, you have to sometimes sacrifice your hand advantage in order to summon them. But the strengths far outweigh the weaknesses. In fact, it's such a powerful deck that you rarely ever pay attention to its weaknesses. Then in number 7, we have a deck that just hasn't died. It's been 11 years now. I think 10 or 11. Lightsworns. Now, Lightsworns, like how Goukis and how Spirals are, they remind me of how Lightsworns are. Lightsworns were the original, like, explosively spammy, overly aggressive kind of deck. I mean, Lightsworns are like the definition of degenerate spamming. And degenerate spamming meaning like, it's just like, you watch this deck go off and you're like, are you done? Oh, okay. Yeah. Are you done? Oh, all right. Wake me up when you're done. All right. Like, it's like that, dude. It really gets like this. This deck can extra link you with still 4 to 5 cards in its hand. It doesn't even need to build the Nightmare board, even though that's one of the best ones to make. This deck has so much in its arsenal. It has the recursion. The recurability is insanity. It has the draw power. It has the sheer overwhelming field presence. The field advantage is insane. Fairy Tale Snow is just one of many. And then when you factor in like all the different techs that you can splash into this deck, like Orbital Hydralander, you can even play Card Trooper if you want to go that route. I mean, my Infernoids, my Lightsworns, I played so many different builds on them. Then you have like the Twilight Sworn build. You can't forget Judgment Dragon is still at 3. That card actually was hit a while ago, like a long time ago. JD was actually on a ban list. I promise you. This card is that broken. Then you have Punishment Dragon, which allows you to actually create this loop where you can link summon and link summon and link summon and then pay 1,000, put all of your extra deck cards back, all of the cards you've banished off of Snow back, to where you never really deck out. And then if you're running low on life points, you just gain them back off of your Michael. I mean, this deck just has this really, really unorthodox playstyle. And what makes it scary like Infernoids is Lightsworns are so random. It's like, it's one of those decks that nothing is really set in stone, and even the person piloting the deck does not know what's going to happen next. Because why? It's a mill-based deck. It's a chance. It's a gamble. It's a medium to high risk, but much, much higher reward and higher payout kind of playstyle. It's like, it thrives off of milling cards to the graveyard, so obviously nobody can anticipate what they're going to mill, right? But when you mill the right cards, that deck just gets insane. Like I said, even the person playing it doesn't know what's going to happen. So that's why the deck is really fun to play, because it'll even surprise you, the person who's using it. Like, oh, dang, I didn't know I was going to go off like that. Because you never know. You're just milling cards. And then to top it all off, it's a skillful deck, but the skill level cannot apply until you mill the right cards. Your skill level will... You can't have skill based on milling cards. That's luck. So there's a factor of luck, there's a factor of skill. But once you mill those right cards, it's up to you to do the right thing with your resources. Do you want to be greedy, over abuse it, and use up all of your resources right now? Or do you want to make a above suboptimal, above subpar board, keep some of your resources and pass and see what happens? And then don't forget you have Amaterasu to get back your hand traps. I mean, like, it's just... This deck is just insane, dude. Okay, like, Lightsworns are just crazy. Like, I could sit here and explain all of these loops you can do with this deck. I mean, put it this way. If this deck can extra link and it's not Goukis and it's not Spirals, if it can extra link you and it can still extra link you with a Naturia Beast right next to it on the left-hand side and a Snow Engrave ready, you're already locked out of your extra deck. Now you have Naturia Beast. You can't activate spells. You can't send from your extra deck. Then you have Fairy Tail Snow that you have to deal with. And then if you break their board but don't kill them, they just drop a JD, blow your field up, and then OTK you. Like, it's such an aggressive and scary deck. That's why Lightsworns are in number 7. I put them above Infernoids because Lightsworns have a higher ceiling than Infernoids. Then we have number 6. Now, number 6 was very difficult because number 6 would have been number 5. But then I compared both of the decks together. Like, pinning one against another, and there's one that always naturally comes out over the top. But in number 6, we have Dinosaurs. Now, it's very curious. Like, a lot of people know how I feel about Dinosaurs. They know I hate the deck. I really don't like the strategy. But also remember, this top 10 is not biased. It's not biased by any means, shape, or form. Some decks on this list I can't stand, but I cannot deny facts. I have to discard my opinion and speak blunt facts. So the reason why Dinosaurs are in number 6 is because their ceiling is so over the top. So over the top. And it's not a very difficult strategy, but in the hands of a skillful player, a Dinosaur deck can just be, I mean, just mind-boggling sometimes. When you just pay attention to how this deck works. I mean, there are Lost World builds that just OTK you. That's just OTK. Then there's the True King build that's pretty consistent, a lot more consistent, I think, than the Lost World build, and also provides a utility and a lot more options for your plays. And then you have, like, 60-card dinos, which were just a thing not too long ago. I don't know why one Grasslix Greener getting banned changed the whole dynamic and people not wanting to play it anymore. But it's like, you didn't even need Grasslix Greener to begin with in a 60-card dino deck. But the dino engine itself is impressive. But then when you look at the deck, like, I think the best variant to me is True King Dino. It is absolutely the most explosive build. And Diagram Baby is, like, such a degenerate combo. It's just crazy. I mean, not only is this deck able to spam the board with a lot of large monsters, but its ability to go into certain extra deck cards that a lot of decks cannot make is what really gives it an edge in the competitive scene over all the other decks above it. And one of the cards I'm speaking on is, of course, True King of All Calamities. Now, I mean, that card alone, hands down, if somebody doesn't have, like, an impermanence on standby, there is no deck that can answer that card and still do anything after that, because it's a lingering effect. Even if you destroy Calamities, that doesn't mean that his effect won't apply while he's off the field. So, like, that card is just so powerful, specifically for dinos because of their OTK potential. If they're able to stun you for a turn and prevent you from progressing any further than what you are, you have to either put up a defensive front or lose. And then the other issue is not only the ability to make Calamities, you know, and the ability to cycle through its engine, but its conductor himself. And then Overraptor is just a whole different level. Like it's like they took Elemental Hero Stratos, transformed him to a dinosaur, gave him a couple extra effects, and then put him in a deck where if he resolves, he grants you a +2. Like, that's just crazy. But we're talking specifically about Conductor, right? Conductor is really what makes this deck so terrifying, honestly. I mean, like, it can potentially, you can break the extra link with Conductor. If your link monsters are able to be destroyed by battle, he can just attack all of them. And if they're not able to be destroyed by battle, he can just attack all of them and then inflict the damage to you and kill you. Like, it's that real. Like, it really is. Like, it's just insanity. And then he's a Book of Moon, not even a Book of Moon. He's like a Book of Eclipse on legs. He's a 3,500 attack monster. None of his effects are hard once per turn, and you can summon multiple in the same turn. And then, when you top it all off, once you summon him properly, Overraptor can just bring him back from the graveyard. Like, that is so oppressive to me. The fact that Dinosaurs have a card like that in their arsenal, and then you factor in the high-speed Chambarba, the ability to go into some of the level 5 synchros that it can make. The Diagram Baby combo can do more than just make Calamities. It can build up a really, really optimal board for your plays. And then the deck's recovery, and then its capability to top deck is so dangerous. Like, this deck can literally top deck one card and kill you. And then when you factor Drone Lockbird is so popular, a Dinosaur player with a Drone Lockbird in his hand is probably more dangerous than most of the decks that I'm listing, like, on this top 10. Because if they draw you and you pass, you're dead. You're dead. It doesn't matter. You can Drone Lockbird them if you want. They're still going to kill you. Like, this deck is just crazy. And then Evolution Pill, being able to drop Overtext Coatlicus. When you're able to drop a True King of all Calamities and an Overtext Coatlicus, that alone is enough. But then you add in the Conductor. If you were able to get 2 dinos in your grave and you have one in your hand, just hard summon him, play the Pill, bring out an Overtext, and then make Calamities. You have 2 different negations, and you have more than enough for game. Like, that deck is just scary good. Dinosaurs are just mad crazy, dude. And I hate the deck, but I still can't deny how good it is. And then we're going to the top 5. So number 5 is obviously going to be True Dracos for me. I felt that True Dracos were of a higher caliber than the other 5 decks that I mentioned. And it's not because of Masterpiece itself. It's because of the deck's spells and traps. And it's not just the spells and traps themselves. It's all the effects that the spells and traps have. And then the deck's consistent draw power cards that it plays. I mean, when you think about Demise, Duality, Desires, that's not just it. Disciples draws as well as Heritage draws. Maiden, Ignis, and Knuckles all generate advantage. This deck is just like how people speak of Sky Strikers, how they slowly overcome you in terms of sheer card economy. Dracos were doing that long before Sky Strikers came out. Dracos are one of those decks that force you to grind. They main deck the most oppressive floodgates that literally pose no restriction to their playstyle, but a lot to the other decks, and they're able to switch out the floodgates to play the ones that are more relevant. Like, sometimes Anti-Spell might not be as good, and then sometimes, you know, like Imperial Order and like Goes in Match and or Rivalry of the Warlords might not always be good, but they're able to switch out their floodgates. And then they have the 4 skill drains, you know, the four spell stoppers. And then you have Knuckles back off the list. Knuckles is insanity. You have Ignis, you have Maiden. It's a very simple playstyle, but its ability to go first or second is what gives it that dominant edge. Able to break boards or make boards. It can still play a Mono Iwado, so you can't really hand trap it. And then to top it all off, it's like every time you activate an effect, you're giving them a +1. You have to acknowledge that this deck generates advantage by doing nothing. Your opponent is the one giving you the advantage just by activating a card effect. That is just insanity to me. And then you have Apocalypse. Apocalypse being able to prevent your opponent from attacking over any of your monsters and potentially just prevent you from OTKing them in general, and then being able to disrupt your opponent in the middle of their turn by using the traps and the spells. It's insane. And the deck can never deck out because Disciples can recycle everything in it. You still have 6 diagrams. You still have 3 Demise. You still have everything is just... It's still there. Like, the deck is not dead, I'm telling you. And I could talk all day, but I think everybody watching this list already knows how powerful True Draco really is. Now in number 4, we have Altergeist. Altergeist, I feel it's very strange that a lot of people think this deck is good now, as if it wasn't good before. But I suppose Multi-Faker was indeed what the deck needed. Just that aggressive aspect of it, you know. And also Hextia. Hextia really helped out the deck. Like, I think Hextia helped the deck a lot. Like, this deck, it was already decent, but those 2 cards just kind of increased the ceiling from a tier 3 deck to a tier 2 or higher. In fact, it was regarded as one of the top 3 best decks not too long ago. But the issue was there was just a lot of other decks that people were more interested in. It's not to say that the deck has gotten worse or better. It's just that a lot of people aren't playing it right now. But Altergeist do have the ability to produce a lot of disruption. Not only the Kieran, but the negation through protocol. The ability to main deck anti-spell. The infinite recursion and monster reborn like effect of Altergeist manifestation, and then the erratas that the card got, that's just to boost it and make it more powerful. Hextia being able to negate any effect of any spell or trap, and then also factoring in Molaseek being able to be the spot removal that you need. The ability to just attack directly is insane. Marionetter being a monster reborn on legs, and it generates you that free trap that you can't really Ash Blossom. Like, the deck's strategy seems slow, but all it really needs to do is resolve a Multiflaker for its tempo to actually accelerate. It accelerates the tempo a lot just by resolving Multiflaker, and you have effectively 6 Multifakers if you have an access to Link Karibo. So the deck is really powerful. It can play some of the most oppressive floodgates as well, just like Draco's. I think the only reason why it has the edge over Draco's, I think, really is because of Hextia and Manifestation. And not only those cards, but the Kieran-like effect. It's able to bounce any cards. So it kind of just, it has a little bit higher ceiling than Draco's. And then also it has a lot more, I guess you can say, representation right now. Like, Dracos aren't topping a lot, but Dracos are still in top 5 because they've proven themselves over the progression of time. But currently right now, Altergeist are still asserting themselves as one of the more dominant decks. And then you also have to keep in mind the ability of Altergeist Soliquitas. It's not just the Kieran effect. If it hits the grave, it grabs an Altergeist trap. And then they have a trap that banishes itself and grabs another trap. Then they have Molaseek. When it hits the grave, it grabs a monster. Then you have Altergeist Hexia. If he hits a grave, he grabs an Altergeist card. Then you have Prime Banshee. If that hits a grave, it grabs an Altergeist card. So you have all this recursion, all this floating garnering of advantage. This deck, very similar to Draco's, can slowly overcome you in terms of sheer card economy, meaning that it's just you don't notice it now, but it's progressing a lot further than you are, getting a lot farther ahead, and it's just one of those archetypes you cannot sleep on it. It has a ton of negations. It really does. And because of Hexia's errata, now this deck can combat Dracos and their abilities of the spells and traps to pop cards from the grave. Hexia can now negate that. So that already gave them the edge in the True Draco matchup. Otherwise, True Dracos would have been number 4. Now the top 3. In number 3, I chose Pendulums, period. I couldn't be biased and say Metalfoes, Pendulum Magicians, for those of you fanboys, Dynomist, Ignites, Performance Pals, Zephyros. Oh, baby, Zephyros. Man, oh, man. I mean, Pendulums, period. I chose Pendulums because I felt that there are so many good Pendulum decks, and Electrum is what really made Pendulum decks over the top. And Pendulums are really just the deck that generates turn 1 boards that are mind-boggling. I mean, so impressive. This deck and Gouki's are kind of the reason why people are so scared that they just choose to side Spear modes instead of Kaiju's. Because this deck generates so much negates. It's just, you don't have enough cards in your hand to bait all of the negations, break the board, and then make your own board. Because those are the 3 things that you have to do when you're playing against a Pendulum player. You have to play through their negations, which means you're losing cards out of your hand that you can't do anything with. Then you have to break their board. And then after that, you need enough resources to make your own board, or they're just going to Pendulum summon and kill you the next turn. And it's an aggressive deck. It OTKs like crazy. It can easily break boards going second. It's not just about Electrum. It's the Pendulum mechanic itself. Being able to mass summon 5 cards from hand, 1 from extra deck, summoning 6. It's like crazy. That's so over the top aggressive to me. And it's so powerful. Like Paleos, it does have a weakness to certain floodgates, but your side deck can complement or circumvent for some of the weaknesses that your deck has. That's the purpose of a side deck. Everything your main deck can't do, your side deck has to be able to do. So Pendulums indeed just take number 3. I mean, Pendulum Magicians are still absurd. I personally think the best Pendulum deck in the world is Zephyros, but that's my opinion. So instead of saying Metalfoes are the best, Pendulum Magicians are the best, or Zephyros are the best, I said Pendulums in general. Number 3 is Pendulums. I can talk a lot about them, but we were in a format where Pendulum Magicians were the best decks, and they had an FTK, they had a Zixo lock, And then on top of those two, they had a board of 4 to 5 negates. No, I'm sorry, not 4 to 5 negates. They had the board of 3 negates. They had the Vortex, Naruto, Jackal King. Those 3 negates are just so detrimental. And there were some other people that were innovating. Some in Titanic Galaxy. You have the Ulti-K potential. You have, you know, before it was like Astrograph and stuff. Even when all those cards got banned, Pendulums are just still, like, they're not dead. It's so crazy. Like, it's one of those decks, like, people never anticipated this to be good. Because for some reason, oh, we lost Astrograph, so our deck's not good anymore. Astrograph wasn't even out, like, around the time when Pendulums were dominating. It's just, it's absurd. Like, Electrum broke the mechanic yet again. And Pendulums take number 3. I mean, I could talk about Zephyrus. My deck can put up, the maximum negates I ever put up was 5 on board and 2 hand traps. Astro, I had double Jackal King. I had Vortex Naruto. No, not Vortex Naruto. I had double Jackal King. I had Vortex. I had Don Dragster. And I had Ash, and I had Dro, and I had Zephyr Divine Strike face down. A Spear Mode wasn't even going to be enough. Like, I literally had too much negates, too much sauce. And if I count it, now that I think of it, that was 7 negates. Well, Dro's not a negate. Dro's just a lock. So it was 6 negates plus a Dro. And, like, that just, it makes some of those boards that are literally unbreakable. Like, if you don't have Spear Mode plus evenly matched, you can't break it. Spear Mode alone is not always enough. You still lose. And it's one of those decks, like, uncontested, you just lose. Number 2, so the top 2 decks, I think you should already know, are Goukis and Trickstars. Now, the differential terms between the two is really what we're going to talk about, because a lot of people feel that Trickstar Sky Striker is so amazing. And me personally, not only have I played against the deck, but I understand its capabilities. I understand the simplistic, very easy mechanic. Trickstars are a simple deck. Now, Trickstars are number 2. I understand you Trickstar fans, you know, you fanboys, you're all have your feelings hurt. Like, no, Trickstars are the best. They're the best. No, son, they're not. In fact, Trickstars themselves can't really keep up with all the other decks that I just mentioned, especially not going second. Like, they just can't. And that's the honest truth. The reason why Trickstars are in the top 2 right now is because of, 1, representation. Representation is the number 1 reason. And 2, the numerous tops that they have under their belt in this format right now. And then 3, their synergy with the Sky Striker engine. So those 3 things are what make Trickstars one of the top 2 decks. Do I think that Trickstars can beat Pendulums? No. Ask yourself logically. Anybody watching this video will tell you in their right mind, Pendulums beat Trickstars. Absolutely, off the top. Altergeist rape Trickstars. Draco beats Trickstars. Dino beats Trickstars. Lightsworns, Infernoids, Paleozoics, Invoked. Trickstars are so fragile, they need Condina. Like, you have 9 ways to get to Condina, but if you don't have Condina, you really don't have anything. The deck is so fragile. It has no interference. Its disruption is reincarnation. Scapegoat, pray to God that you resolve Scapegoat on in-face, and it's just kind of one of those decks. I don't think that Trickstars are that powerful, but I think the reason why they're so popular is because Trickstars are so daggone easy to play. I mean, you can play this deck in your sleep. You can just barely, you could be new to the game a weekend, like, oh, this is my 5th day playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Oh, what happened? Oh, I got 31st place at Nationals. What did you play? Trickstar Sky Strikers. Got it. I don't even need to ask questions. Like, the deck is that simple. And because it's so simple, that's what attracts a lot of players, because there's not a lot of line of thinking behind it, but when you apply your own skill level to it, you can pilot the deck a lot more effectively and or, you know, a lot more efficiently than most can. But its playstyle is not dynamic. It's not over the top. The Sky Striker engine allowed the deck to get the aggressive side that it needed, because Trickstars were very fragile and flimsy. It didn't really have a defensive like front outside of like reincarnation and scapegoats. And like scapegoat is honestly was the absolute win condition of Trickstars before they incorporated the Hornet drones and stuff like that. And even though it's able to make like a turn 1 Skull Dread, you have to think about what this deck actually puts on the board. It puts a Condina and or a Licorice and like a Shizuku, and that's it. Like, it's not like it makes boards. What makes the deck is so good is because of its consistent engine, and what attracts a lot of the players is it has a lot of searchability. You're not going to have the issue of, oh, I didn't get to see the cards that I needed, because it has a lot of, you know, a lot of options to get to the cards that it needs to kickstart the engine. But what it puts out on the field is like Shizuku, Licorice, Scapegoat set, Reincarnation, Pass. Like, this deck is only really ever like amazing when you have Droll and Reincarnation. But Trickstar takes number 2, not because it's so amazingly good, but just simply because it's high representation. It has a lot of tops, and it's like everybody is incorporating the Sky Striker engine into this deck. So Trickstar Sky Strikers are just, they're up there. But me personally, even from experience at Nationals, I played 4 Trickstar Sky Strikers. 2-0'd all of them. I didn't even lose a 1 out of 3 against them. And I went second. 3 out of the 4 duels, I went second. So, like, that speaks volumes about the deck itself. And, like, especially, like, when I asked the reincarnation, it's just like, come on, dude. Like, it's just, the deck is not as scary as people say it is. But you know what? It's the representation. Number 1 is Goukis. To me, I feel Goukis are a lot better than Trickstars. They're a lot more consistent. Trickstars have what? Terraforming, Light Stage, Condina. That's 9 cards. And then they have the 3 Engage. That's 12. Like, they have 12 amazingly great cards. Hornet Drones, cool. Okay, so we can say, like, Hornet Drones. But Hornet Drones doesn't net actual value or advantage. It just allows you to put Shujuku on the field and, grab the Hornet Drones and then make, like, a Nightmare monster. Hornet Drones by itself is not really a you can't call it a part of the consistency of the deck. It doesn't really, like, I guess technically you could say you can go into Shizuku and then in phase just grab and engage, but like I would really say that those are the 12 cards that make the deck so, I guess consistent. But Goukis, practically their entire deck is their combo. Their 2-card combo that's all the deck's about, a 2-card combo, an extremely consistent, over the top, overpowered, win condition 2-card combo, because now they have Topologic Gumblar Dragon. They can rape your entire hand and still extra link you. This deck is so unfair. It's not even right. Like, when you think about how many ways it has to get into the combo, okay, I asked you this. You're watching this video. If you're a Gouki player, in the comment section, name one time playing your Gouki deck that you drew a hand when you didn't have the combo. Like, when you drew a hand, you're like, I can't make you Soul Day. Never. Not once. They have 3 Instant Fusion. They can play 3 of the Brigandine Trap. They have 3 Engage. They have 3 Hornet Drones. They have the they can play the Predaplant engine. They have the Terratop and the Takum Tom board to go into the Invoker. They can play Galaxy Worm. They have Marauding Captain and Goblinberg. I mean, you literally just need to get 2 warriors on the field. Like, if they wanted to, they could play 3 Marauding Captains. They could play 3 Goblinbergs. They could play 3 Instants, 3 of the Trap, 3 Engage, 3 Drones, 3 Suprex, 3 Instant Fusion, if I didn't already mention. Like, all they have to do is put 2 warriors on the board and they win. And it's like, you have to have the hand trap. This, like, against Trickstars, you don't have to have a hand trap all the time. You'll still beat them, even if they get, I searched my reincarnation. Like, you could still beat them, even if they try to reincarnation draw you. If you drew an Ash Blossom, because remember, unless you're the one doing the searching, if they if they have the double reincarnation draw, they have to let you draw first off the first one. If you draw that Ash, you got it. Or if you draw the Ash for turn, or you have the negation for the reincarnation, you've got it. You're good to go. But Goukis, you cannot let them go uncontested, because if you have a Spear Mode in hand, they're going to discard it off of Gumblar Dragon. If you have an Evenly in your hand, they're going to negate it off of Trigate Wizard. Like, this deck is just the epitome and the definition of unfair and degenerate. And do I think that this is the best deck of the format? Absolutely. I'm not even a fan of the deck. I don't like it at all. But I cannot deny at all how powerful Goukis are. Every time I play this deck, just like when I'm playing Infernoids, I am so nervous. Like, if I'm going second and I'm like, oh, crap, I don't have a hand trap, I feel like I've already lost. Like, this deck is really that scary. So, yeah, Goukis definitely take number 1. And what's so interesting about the deck is all the different ways that you can play it. I've seen the most recent one I've seen is people playing the Neospatian, what's his name? Dolphin, I think, or whatever he is. And then the Topologic Gumblar Dragon, I think that's a staple. You should sacrifice one of your 15, put them in there, because your 2-card combo can always hit the extra link plus him, ripping 4 cards out of their hand. That's when you rip 4, think about that. Like, ripping 4 out of the hand of any player is almost inevitably game. And then, like, if they have the Trigate, how are you supposed to beat them with 1 card in hand, even if it's a Raigeki? Like, you're back to square one. Like, and then they probably can't even be destroyed by card effects anyway. So it's just like, Goukis are so unfair. It breaks your heart just to see the extra link. Like when you draw for turn, it just breaks your heart to just be looking at it like, dang, if he didn't Gumbler, I could have just spear moded him right now. But not every Gouki player does play Gumbler, so I will say that. So if they extra link you and they don't Gumbler you, you do have an absolutely fair chance. Absolutely. Because some decks don't need their extra deck. Like Dracos are good. I think Dinos would be good. Heck, Infernoids would be great. They wouldn't even be worried about anything. Pendulums could just mass summon from their hand and boost their attack with Purple Poison, cut some stuff in half with Black Fang, and just attack over your things. So yeah, that's a top 10 for me. I know a lot of people would expect some other decks on there, but remember, it's not biased. There's no favoritism. Heck, if I had the choice, I would put Herald of Perfection, Zephyros, Prediction Princesses. I would just start naming all of my favorite decks. I put Psyframes in the top 10s because these are decks I feel are the best. But again, these are facts. Honorable mentions go for one to Mermails and Burning Abyss. Both these decks could have made the top 10, but they're just kind of like Lightsworns. Like they just pop up, they creep into formats in and out. But just because somebody tops with the deck, that does not mean that the deck itself is like, oh my god, it's the best deck now. Like I think that's a really bad habit that Yu-Gi-Oh players have. Like period. Like they see a deck top one time and then they blow their next paycheck on building that deck and then get extremely disappointed when they lose with it because they thought it was like the deck. It sounds so cliche, but it's not the deck, it's a player. So when you see somebody topping with BAs and topping with Mermails, it's like the deck is great itself, but those are normally the veteran players. They're like he's like that dude that's like, I've been playing BAs since they came out. Like, it's like those kind of people, man. It's like they have to be piloted by the right players. You don't just get to play Mermails and BAs and think you're going to walk in and top because they have a lot less strengths than most of these decks do. So there's a lot more skill that you have to apply to that. But Mermails and Burning Abyss do get honorable mentions because they have had consistent tops. They have been in the forefront of the meta since their debut. Burning Abyss running on like 2-3 years. Mermails running on like a lot longer. And then the next honorable mention goes to Herald of Perfection and Psyframes. I had to, you know what I'm saying? I had to. I know I couldn't squeeze them in the top 10 because obviously you haven't seen Psyframes or Herald of Perfection in any top tables of any event for a very long time, and I think that's my fault because I've been playing Zephyros. But also another honorable mention would go to Dangerous. I feel like there's a lot of potential. Well, I really say Dangerous, Palladions, and Tran Kids or whatever? Prank Kids. I think those three archetypes have a lot of potential, but they're not legal right now. We don't know what's actually going to happen. And then we got to remember stuff like Magical Musketeers, just certain decks that we had high expectations for and they just didn't make it. If there's any other deck that I did not give an honorable mention to, please do not be sensitive. Please don't feel like I'm breaking your heart. I'm so sorry if I forgot. But if you have a favorite deck, that is your favorite deck. I am not denying how good it is. I'm sorry if I didn't mention one of your decks. God bless you guys. Make good choices. Don't hurt your brain cells. Stay tuned for future content. Y'all have a beautiful night. And definitely just check this out, man. Stick around to the end of the video. You'd be surprised. But thank you guys so much for watching. And peace out.